on morning TV.
Yeah, it's like you join us in the ramp up to the show beginning, which is great fun.
Yep. Yep, because Barry and I enjoy chatting with each other.
Exactly. Yes.
So welcome. It's the new streamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, TV and podcast #1 Internet Singles Talk Network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
Back at it. Our Thursday advice giving.
Yes, indeed.
So I imagine that there's people in the midst of this, or maybe wish they'd thought about this beforehand when something ended.
Yes,
so
indeed.
today we're going to talk about, is a relationship repairable? It's a really good thing to be thinking about ahead of time. Or is it time to leave? Because people can sometimes leave too soon and often leave too late. So yes, what do you think about that, Barry?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's almost like the question is what's your investment in the relationship? Like, is it worth repairing it because it's worth staying in it, or is it not even worth the effort and you want to get out anyway? So there's a spectrum, or there's definitely an array of thoughts about how we deal with this, because some people's investment in a relationship almost isn't tested until there's a challenge.
Yeah.
Or in fact, they're not. It's almost like you find it from your partners, like they don't really care that much because they walk away so easily. And you're saying, but we want to work on this. So sometimes also, in fact, quite often, is the couple's perceptions are all different from each other. So you find out then, it's almost like you pay the price or you learn the lesson when the challenges hit the fan, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know?
Because generally people haven't checked in. But I will tell you, it was so interesting to have this subject come up this week, because a couple of days ago, a friend of mine has a friend, neither one of them are clients, who said that her friend said, oh, do you think I could go to marriage counseling with the guy that I'm dating? And she said, well, how long have you been dating? And she said, a month. She said, no. She said, well, why? Why? Because we're having a lot of problems. She said, no. A lot of problems, say bye-bye. So I thought, this is the perfect extreme for this conversation.
Yeah, it's like how
quickly problems in the first month? No.
Yes, how quickly do you get invested, and how what's one looking before? It's almost like you got to decide which is in the plus column and the negative column in a way to decide, is it worth continuing this journey, or is it like, you know what, the problem's too high, just back away and leave it alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said she could talk to me and I'll be happy to. Oh, here's Miss Gigi. She was outside. She made a big effort to come and say hello to Barry today. She was laying on the bench in the atrium. Yeah, it was interesting because obviously this woman that's a friend of a friend was way invested. If she was ready to go to counseling after a month, she thought this was a pretty important relationship after a month. But the other thing is, often, really, most of us, at least for a month, put our best foot forward. And I'm not saying it wasn't his best foot, but if you're already having problems, I don't think you're each other's people.
It is interesting because just when they do transparency, some of my younger relationships that basically didn't last that long, like 2 or 3 months. We were heavy and deep in the I won't say deep in the weeds, but deep in the forest of it within about 3 or 4 weeks sometimes, because it was so like jumping right in. Of course, there are people who fall in love from the get-go, they have sex on the first date and they're lifelong partners. That happens once in a while. So they know from the very beginning they're meant to work together, and therefore they're meant to work things out, rather than going, you know what, not going to happen, and walk away. So there is definitely a range of this. So we want to really sort of kind of address the spectrum of possibilities.
Such a spectrum.
Yeah.
So, is it repairable? Well, first, how committed are both of you? I mean, are you really wanting to see if there's a future? That's a really good reason to look at what's going on.
Yeah.
And what's going on. I mean, is it a little thing? Is it a big thing? Is it a your only thing? Is it a their only thing? Is it a relationship thing? I mean, are you starting to feel insecure? And is it because this is your pattern, or have they done something that's made you feel insecure? I mean, that's really the groundwork that you have to start with. So what is the thing or the list of things that you're considering whether or not to stay or leave, because that's really the bottom line.
Yeah, and it's like, as you said, sometimes it is about your own insecurities showing up, your own uncertainty showing up, but also it could be the fact that maybe one of your your rules is violated. They cheated on you, or they started smoking weed, and you both were not going to do anything. I mean, there are different things that can be the trigger point of why you might be upset. And then the question is, well, does the upset mean it's over, or does it mean you need to have a conversation, or what's in between? And so this is why it's a good question to ask yourself anytime in the relationship: is this over, or is this repairable? Because you don't necessarily know. Sometimes, of course, sometimes these issues in quotes show up that you weren't even thinking about them happening, and so suddenly at left field, you have this thing happen. You go, I didn't even consider that before. So it's quite an education in this process.
So, as we preach all the time, to just stay current with your feelings and their feelings, and where's everybody doing, how's everybody doing today, and where's everybody still feeling like this is going. Because sometimes, as you said, it could be something that's now come up that you hadn't thought about or asked about, and it's not that anybody was hiding anything, it just hadn't arrived in the time that you've been together, that oh my gosh, this is something that happens every year, this is something that happens every month, or oh my gosh, this person came back in my life that's part of my family that's a crazy making person. And there could just be that kind of a thing. Or it could be they've made some sort of a change, their job changed, their health changed, there's something that's changed that's now, can you stay? Is this something that you can work out together that's going to take an adjustment on both people's parts? So it's really important to start with what's the thing each time. What's the thing? If there's a thing today, how big is it? And is it yours? Is it theirs? Or is it the relationship? And talk about it, even if it's just yours. Boy, I'm going through a thing. Or you seem like there's something different. What are you doing? Or gosh, I think it's something to do with how we're not communicating together, or how we're not structuring our time well together, because that's the third thing, the relationship.
Yeah. In fact, I want to underscore that point, because as you said, it's like, each day checking in, because the thing is, sometimes what happens, unfortunately, for many people is stuff accumulates. You don't get around, you don't speak about the day. It's like, oh, it's no big deal. Then day 2, day 3, someone shows up on top of that, and it's still no big a deal. And it's kind of the whatever it is, if it's the mouse or the crab or the lobster in the pot, whatever that one is about boiling, it starts out cool, but the temperature goes up slowly but surely, and they're not even aware it's happening. And so if you don't deal with the issue or the niggling little thing that isn't even an issue yet in the moment, you don't nip it in the bud, it can become very cumulative. And a couple of weeks later, you've got so much upset with your partner, and you can't figure out why you're so upset, because you didn't deal with it at the beginning. So it's worth having an advanced thing. And I want to preface that as well. We talked about, in relationship stuff shows up. If you haven't, I know this is an admonishment to anybody, but if you haven't, when you're single, sought the support or guidance of somebody who knows stuff, like a counselor, like one of us two, before you get into a relationship, it can really make your relationship more challenging. That's the reason why we do our work with singles as much as we do with couples, because it's really better in some ways to do the preparation work first rather than doing the repair work afterwards.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. So we're back to figuring out what's important to you. How much time do you have? How much energy do you have? The latest thing that's come up with a couple of different couples is they talked about so many things. Still not clients. They're becoming clients, but they started out not clients.
Yes.
They really, they would tell me, and because we're sort of peripheral friends, like, wow, you guys are doing a really good job. You're really talking about stuff. The really big riff that came up was how different they are, extrovert and introvert. So different. And I didn't even think, because I kept hearing all the things they were talking about, and there were so many big important things that never even entered my head to say, oh, by the way, did you talk about being an introvert and extrovert? Because I don't know her well enough. I just know him. And it's become this huge problem, a huge problem. So I'm like, we're adding that to all the list of everything, because there's so many different personality things that you just take for granted because this is who you are.
Yeah, I remember you shared a story a while ago about a couple who figured out
Mhm.
how to be when they go to social engagements, and that's the thing is it's like when you understand, and this is the key, brother, one of the keys. Well, if it is one of those fundamental differences you didn't realize early going on, once you understand what the difference is, and you recognize the relationship is more important than making that the primary issue,
Yep.
then you're willing to work on. Okay, so if that's what the challenge is, how do we work with it?
Yeah.
You don't function past 10 o'clock at night. And I want to go to 1 in the morning. How do we work with that? So that becomes, rather than saying, oh, I'm going to ditch this relationship, I'm with somebody to be a night bird with me.
Yeah.
So if you love this person, you care about this person, how do you negotiate? How do you navigate? How do you work things out? So like with extrovert and introvert, how do you honor both choices? Because ultimately, that's all it is, really, is do you choose to honor each other's differences?
Yeah. Yeah, sadly, this is not that couple that I was talking about who had worked it out.
Mhm.
And what happened with the other couple, and it's interesting because he talked to me about how they had talked about it. They really realized pretty early on that their social needs were very different. And so they really talked about it. This one, they really didn't, which is so interesting because they talked about so many other things that I'm not making light of the stuff. I mean, they talked about
Right.
stuff and they got
Mhm.
those cards and we're doing it. It was fascinating how it just slips by. It just slips by. So that when you start feeling an upset, one or both of you, when you start feeling this earthquake happening inside of you, that turns out neither one of them were getting in this way their needs met and were frustrated individually and became collectively. And I think, oh, if while you're doing all this other heavy talking, this was such an interesting thought for me. How do you say, oh, there's this thing, because we're doing all this.
Mhm.
There's still this thing. I mean, what alarm bell do you need to go off or what extra thing to go? But we're doing all this hard work and there's this thing. It was really an interesting way for me to start thinking even more broadly about how do you notice? How do you call it out in yourself? How do you say it out loud to the other person? I know we've been together all this time and I've really kind of been working it out, but I'm really both. It's not really working, even though it's not awful and it looks better than it feels. I mean, that was really what I saw, that they really looked so much better than they were feeling inside and not fake. Trying. I
Yeah.
could tell they were trying. It was wild. It was such an education for me to watch this happen after the fact. I didn't know it in the middle, but
Right.
because I watched the middle, but now I'd hear what was really going on. Yeah, oh, it was interesting because the more conscious we are of ourselves, I think that's really the key to this bottom line of this particular subject today. How am I the most comfortable? And when am I not? And why? Did I get enough sleep? Did I eat enough? All the stuff that's us. And then what is it I'm needing from this relationship with this other person that I'm not getting? And maybe I don't even know what it is, but I'm not getting something. And make that part of the conversation. I think that is a big challenge for people that are really doing a good job. And what the turning place is, which is bringing in a third person. I said, here I was all the time. They just didn't even think about it.
Well, the thing about that piece and what kept coming up for me was the blind spot. Is the thing is realizing, and oftentimes is you can do all this work. I mean, all of us have blind spots in one way or another, and sometimes it takes that outside person, whether it's a relationship partner or a coach, to see where your blind spot is that you don't see for yourself. And so, when you talked about this couple, definitely that paradigm of all the work they've done because they can see that to work on it and do something about it. But the blind spot was not realizing that this issue around extrovert over introvert was like a hidden piece they didn't know they had that was in the way. And so one thing about that is when you recognize that it's something you didn't see, it's okay you didn't see it. Don't start beating yourself up, say, I should have seen that, should have known that, all the shoulds and stuff we do to ourselves, which is just self-recrimination. It's like self-flagellation. It doesn't work, doesn't benefit anybody. So acknowledging, yes, there was a piece you missed, a piece you didn't understand, a piece you didn't recognize with each other, but now you do. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to take it on like you're taking? And the other thing is also if you've taken on so much work and done so much of the internal processing and internal resolution of past traumas, upsets, and relationship issues, if this thing shows up, surely it's not going to negate everything you've done before. So wouldn't you want to make sure that even this piece can be resolved as well?
Maybe.
Depends how you value the relationship.
And the other piece that you brought up about not recriminating yourself, that you don't recriminate the other person either. How come you didn't see it, and how come you whatever? It's easier to sometimes, or just as easy. And then nothing good comes from that. There's no healing. Even can you leave in a healed way, where that's not going to happen if you're both feeling really rancorous towards each other, because you're not giving me what I need and you're not there for me in the way I need it. And if you don't know and you don't say, how can the other person? There's just, it might be they can't. You didn't give them a chance. Neither side. Yeah. Fascinating. So I'm very sad for them, because it's ending. And I'm sad for that. And it was so helpful to think about it, especially for the relationship to this particular subject today, how you wonder, why is it time to leave when you've worked so hard?
It's that's the thing is how full is your cup of challenge when something else gets added to it? Because that's the other part too, is sometimes it's recognizing that we talked earlier about resolving things when they show up and be able to deal with them. But if things accumulate far enough, does that thing on top become the straw that breaks the camel's back? Or is it just like, hang on a second, let me make some room so I can work with this and face that issue and resolve that problem with our disparities so that we can keep moving forward? Because again, it's the value of the relationship, or the work you've done in the relationship, that comes to bear against the thing that's now become maybe this immovable object that's in the way. Maybe there's something you can do about it.
And at least now oh my gosh, I have to realize and honor this as part of me, and that I need to make sure I say this out loud to the next person. Yeah. Oof. And I'm sure there's lots of subjects that this could revolve around. And it was just so interesting that it was clearly the introvert extrovert part. It was so in hindsight to them too. And wow, how do you know when there's a fissure coming? How do you feel the first tremors before the big earthquake happens? And I just think talking, when you notice you're not feeling right, this isn't feeling good, there's something not feeling good. It was feeling really, really good, and now it doesn't. What is it? And especially when it's small, I think that's really when it's easier to not be recriminating to yourself or the other person, because it's like, well, it's this kind of little thing. I've been thinking about it. What do you think? What do you think this thing is? Because then you're going to go, well, I would want to talk about it because it's a little thing, as you mentioned, but it's so much easier to talk about it when it's a little thing.
Yeah, it's just that's reflecting back on my young years before I'd done any of this work, and realizing, I've shared before many times in the thing about how my early relationships, they would end because of an argument. Because of the way I was raised, there wasn't any argument in our family per se. And I'm doing cliff notes of this, but basically not coming from a family dynamic where arguments were part of the fabric. To be in a relationship where my partner would have an upset and be arguing with me, I would shut down because I didn't know what to do with it, because I believed that love and arguments didn't go together. And realized, with hindsight, if I realized that was going on, because we just had different ways of interfacing. If I realized her upset was her way of expressing love because she cared enough, and I realized that I didn't argue back because that wouldn't have been loving for me, we go, oh, hang on a second, we have different ways of doing this. Let's find the middle ground. And I could have done so much better in my past relationships, of course, if I knew then what I know now, But it's the thing, is we have these opportunities sometimes, again, not recriminating ourselves, as we said, or the other person. In hindsight, look back at past relationships and say, if I'd known then what I know now, how differently I could have done things, and how maybe that relationship could have been the one that lasted a lifetime. We don't know,
Yep. And the way that I don't give myself a hard time about it, I go, well, I wouldn't be here getting to do all this and having this kind of a life if I hadn't not known that. And it,
Right.
as we both talked about, set us on the path of learning so much for decades now. So, all right, that's the reason. So if you have, so we talked about things that have broken people up that are big on their Richter scale. So that's the other thing you have to think about. So your deal breakers, like fidelity or drug use, or, you know, the things that you just can't abide by, that you need to say out loud to this person. I'm sure you don't. And if you, I just need to tell you, this is a thing I can't do. And then they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you? Where are you? What do you do? Can you repair it? That has been such an interesting conversation to have with people over these years. And often they have to go through the steps of, I am so wrong. I am so wrong. I was so wrong. And this is why I did it. And I'm owning it. And I am so full of apologies.
Right.
And this is what I'm going to do to never do that thing again. And as the person who's on the receiving end of all that, the challenge is to say, do I need anything else? Do I need anything else? Because I need, if I want to stay, I have to, I can't recriminate. But if part of it is, you know, you need to have their phone open, or they need to report in everywhere they're going, you know, for the next 6 months. Okay. Yeah. If you both agree, but if you've agreed and they're keeping their word, this is the thing I've had to check in with the person who felt betrayed and whatever reason. How you doing? Nope. What do we need to do? Because we need to keep clearing that out, because that is not them. If you have said, this is what I need, and are they doing it? Mm-hmm. Then you need no more. Right. No more giving them shit. And if they don't keep their word, then the agreement is we're done. So that's on you too. That, yeah, the other person has a big responsibility, and so do you, if you want to stay. If you want to stay. That's the only reason. And it's also a gift for yourself to get past it. I can't be mad at all the opposite sex because this person did something that upset me, because that's a terrible thing to happen. That happens a lot.
Unfortunately,
we've dated a few of those, haven't we? It's more fun to twist them.
Absolutely. And the thing I guess I come down to and make this very clear is, don't be afraid to communicate. You know, if you're upset or something's triggering you, bugging you, don't be, if you're afraid to bother your partner with it, you're coming at it the wrong way around. Because the thing about it is, you should in quotes, or ideally would be able to communicate anything to your partner in a safe space. Yeah. Whether it's something about them or something about you or something that you're just aware of that's coming up. So the other person can hear it and feel it and not take it on personally either. Because again, you know, when we talk about this in past relationships too, past conversations too, in talks about the way people get so assumptive about each other and don't actually choose to communicate, listen, or take ownership for their partner relationship. Because what we're talking about here really is growing up in a relationship, to be a more mature, active partner relationship. That means you're able to listen and take feedback without taking it personally. You're also willing to give kind, caring feedback or support without making it personal to the other person. So that not a sense of personal, meaning that they don't feel blamed for it. And you don't feel blamed for it, or ashamed about it, or feeling guilty about it. You say, you know what, I realize this is not working. What can we do differently? Because yes, there are some things you said, like taking ownership if you transgressed that line or whatever that policy was or agreement you have with your partner. But taking ownership, but then also, what can you do to repair it? You don't spend your whole time wallowing in the, oh, I screwed up, I did so wrong, I'm so bad, I'm just not going to, you know, that's the fast route out of the relationship. It's, and unfortunately, sorry, sidebar just came up, is about being in narcissistic relationships. Sometimes that's the way you're being taught to feel the whole time, which we're not talking about here. We're talking about two conscious, caring adults in the relationship who are both working on this stuff, not a one-up, one-down thing. So having that awareness that you can communicate with each other can give you the opportunity to resolve what may become perceived as an insurmountable hurdle as really just being a molehill you can work out more easily with each other.
Yeah. One of the analogies I use is, if you're going to get physically naked with them, you need to be emotionally naked with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's amazing. Oh, I can't talk about that. You're having sex with them, but I can't talk about it. You're having sex with them.
Right.
I've had that conversation a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you are welcome to have your deal breakers. And if they do it and don't make restitution, or it's just beyond your forgiving, then absolutely. I think that's always time to leave without any excuse, any explanation. Oh, yep. I told you in the beginning, this is a thing and you did it. And sorry, can't.
Mm-hmm.
Sad. Wish it was different. Can't. And that's such an empowering thing to do for yourself, to know what really you have to stay in a relationship, and to be able to say, you can't do it. Okay, I get it. Then we can't be together.
Right.
Instead of the eking, as we've talked about, that we're, well, maybe, and kind of, sort of, and maybe I'm wrong if I'm wanting this much. If it makes you feel awful, it's not wrong. It's really who you are, I think. So we're back to, what are your needs? What are the things that you need and want? And figuring out a way to tell the other person and see, is it something they could do? Have they ever been asked it before? Maybe not. Maybe they could. They just never been asked, or they've never been asked and they go, I could never do that. That's why you have to know what it is and ask.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because we tend to enter a relationship with so much unsaid and unthought about, and then we discover along the way there's like, oh, I didn't think about that part. Oh, I didn't think about this part. And that's the challenge we face oftentimes, is we get into a relationship. It's like going off half cock, so to speak. It's like having not a full picture, full clear. One thing to do with my clients is having to get clear about what they want in a relationship. A vision that's so strong, so clear that it's can't guarantee it, but almost always it includes, and let's say, what's the word I'm looking for? Not circumspect, but it includes everything that they want to have in a relationship. So sometimes those things that show up weren't on that list, weren't in that criteria. So having the presence of mind, consciousness, and willingness to discuss that and face that, rather than going, that's it, it's over, is part of the journey. But yes, when there are serious deal breakers that they've violated, that they know about because you've talked about it before, which again, and early in the conversation, you want to have this conversation early on, so you know where each other stands. This is the agreement. Do we agree on that? Yes, great. If they violate it, you may decide to give them a 3 strikes and out policy. Then again, you might say, you know what, it's done, it's over, I can't continue. But at least don't just walk out the door. Have a conversation. Say, we had this agreement, and I thought I could trust you. This got violated. I don't know what to do with this. I think I'm going to have to call it quits on this.
Mm-hmm.
But know what you're choosing, because if you're looking for an excuse to get out, then why are you in the first place?
Yeah.
And
I talked earlier about that, if they've changed, but if you've changed, gosh, I know I said this in the beginning. I've decided I'd be okay with this instead. Or, I'm sorry, I've decided I can't be okay with that. I mean, it's hard. That's a very hard conversation. I changed my mind. And you have to tell them you changed your mind. They really do, because now you're living a lie. And the only way to have a really whole, thoroughly loving relationship with someone is to be your honest self. And you know me, I'm going to tell everybody in the nicest way possible, because that's how I was born. It's the only gene I have available. I've tried being bitchy and it just doesn't come out. I can think it, but it doesn't come out of my mouth. And it was a real big challenge for me to learn to say, ooh, this is what I need now. Are you still going to like me? And sometimes they didn't. And oh, well. And I learned to live with it. It was okay. And sometimes they changed, and I said, I can't live with that either. And we all lived through it. It was kind of remarkable, because I thought maybe one of us would just die. I really was so sensitive about all that stuff. And I know there's still people, no matter what age you are, you can feel that way. Trust me, you will die a little inside if you keep not being true to yourself. If you don't put out what you really need and say, can you do this with me? And they need to put out what they really need and say, can you do this with me? And that it never falls below that good enough line. It can never be something bad for you, because then it infiltrates the relationship. The relationship becomes bad. So it's brave. It's really brave to have any of these conversations. And yeah, it's great if you can really have a conversation and you like this person a lot and you're in love with them and you'd really like it to last and it works out and the two of you go, wow. And I found that it can be even stronger. People have an even better relationship and it encourages them to talk about stuff earlier before. And truly, I have coached, I think I'm up to 5 now, maybe 6 couples through a divorce or a separate, splitting up on such an amicable basis because they did this.
Yeah.
Had honest conversations about, well, why isn't this working? And is there any way out of it? And there wasn't, for a whole bunch of interesting reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And they went, oh, but neither one of us are bad people. Because I think in a lot of rancorous divorce, people are really clear that the other person's a terrible person.
Yeah, unfortunately. And that is such a key in a way to realize that relationships should only be over when the loving ends. When it's really clear that you have nothing else to share with each other. Because yes, you can be in love with each other and stuff comes up and issues show up. But if you let that become stronger than the love you have for each other, then that's the challenge in the relationship. So if you want to be invested in a really deep, loving, committed relationship, then know that anything that shows up has to be so big. Sorry, if there's something you worry about, something showing up to break the relationship up, has to be so big that it is bigger than the love you share. That's one thing. But oftentimes those things that show up are just things that really tick you off, and then you ignore all the love you already have. And so you're making this, unfortunately, imbalanced choice to bail or to get upset or to excommunicate your partner rather than be willing to go, you know what, the love is strong enough. Let's find a bridge to work this out and figure things out. And at the same time, again, on the other side of the coin about when it's time to leave, is when it is such a thing where they've violated, clearly indicated that the love they have for you maybe isn't as strong as you thought it was. Yeah. Maybe not as strong as they thought it was. Yeah. And that becomes the exit note, so to speak. It may become the time to say, you know what, this isn't going to work. Mm-hmm. And then the challenge is, can you leave in grace rather than in rage and upset and fury? Because the thing about it also is, if you leave the relationship with upset and issues and everything else, like in divorces that are really discordant and painful, there's so much trauma and upset that's carried around after the relationship, which makes, of course, people think of dating somebody else straight away. That's all. We've covered the topic before about taking your old baggage into the new relationship. Not cool either. So if you can do your best when the relationship is clearly ending, and of course, again, 2 caring adults in the relationship, not one who's really bizarre off the spectrum in some other way, but we both adults, to really say, why it's not working and what we're choosing to do as an exit route that is amicable, honest, and loving, and being compassionate with yourself and the other person. So when you do end, it becomes a graceful ending rather than a discordant ending. That would be ideal.
Oh, ideal. Yes. Mm. The divorce lawyers won't be happy about it.
No, they won't.
Much money. And then, peripherally, you think there's children and the friends. I mean, they all think they have to choose sides then, and they have to think the other person's a horrible person if they're supposedly on your side. And I know there's things that really are totally unforgivable. They just are. And still, having a clear, open conversation, even if it's only one-sided, will help you move on better. Because if you've been with somebody and they've done something so egregious, it's normal to go, what's wrong with me? And why was I with them? And how come I didn't see this? And how come I didn't do something sooner? Blah, 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 blah. So this is the healing of that. So do it just for yourself. Just be selfish about that. How do you leave on your best footing? That you're not feeling kind of tilted over because this shook you up so much.
Yeah.
Because when you're really joined with somebody, of course, you're going to start feeling like you fall over when they're not there anymore. And if you felt betrayed in some way. And I know that there's some people that thrive on holding on to the anger, but I sure don't want to date any of them. Or if you want to be more dateable, it's helpful to get rid of that, whatever it was. They're leaving. They're not there anymore. So let them take it with them. And how do you send it down the shower drain. Because that's what everybody says. How do you do after listening to people all day? I go, I send it down the shower drain at the end of the day. And I really, it's really helps me stay upright, because I don't feel bad talking to people, even when they're talking about really awful things. I feel bad for them. And I just do this ritual every night, and it seems to really, it's just a thing I do. So my brain and my body just, oh, we're going to go in the shower and it's going to go down the drain. The sewer system's going to take care of it. So to do something similar, to say, I'm letting go of this horrible feeling about having been in this relationship and it didn't work out, and I did the best I could, and I'm going to do better next because look at what I learned. And it's really helpful, because I've done that with people after the fact too. And they listen to their friends who are still super mad after a lot of years, and they're not, they're like, how come you're not still mad? What would be the point? Being mad isn't affecting them. It's only affecting me. I mean, how unhealthy is that?
Exactly. That's the thing. We talk about that in terms of resentment, about the idea of like taking poison, expecting the other person to die. That's the thing about toxicity of upset and rage and everything else, especially after the breakup, when you're not even talking to them. You carry this simmering upset and woundedness and hurt feelings and all this stuff that you feel like you're justified in feeling because they did you wrong. But the truth is, they're not feeling any of that stuff because they're not even in your life. So why do you want to carry that burden on yourself and become toxic to your own beingness? So definitely, if you're still carrying that wound around, it's time to let it go and make some peace, whether it's through the shower or working with a coach or cord cutting, whatever it is you do that is a tool to let that stuff go. Do it so you can be free for the next relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people write out all the horrible stuff on pieces of paper and burn them, or put them in rocks in the ocean, or I don't know. There's a whole bunch of ways to purge yourself.
Yeah.
So one of the things I hope that people are really hearing from this is how to prevent having huge upsets. And also, when you're feeling the upset ahead of time, you say something. And then if you're having a really big upset, to talk to somebody and see. And then if it's not going to work out, how can you leave them the best way possible for you? Yeah. And then how do you process it after? Because it's such a broad subject. I mean, it really isn't just one little tiny piece. I thought about this ahead of time, about all the different phases that combine to decide, is it repairable or is it time to leave? Because people just want to come and go, okay, do we decide now? Okay, maybe not. Maybe there might be some other things to talk about. But we often think, I'm so upset. It's so awful. Okay, I'm just ready to leave. Let's see. Is it repairable? Are you repairable? Can we repair you? Can we repair them to maybe be good together, or at least okay apart?
Well, the thing, and yes, I definitely agree. And that's one reason we're both here, for this reason too. But the other part as well is that if you had a lot of these relationships going for a long time, lots of great highlights and wonderful things about it. The challenge is sometimes is when something bad happens, something traumatic, something, an issue comes up, a wedge between the two of you, that sometimes you can look at and think it's bigger and more important than everything that happened before, which is not true normally. That's a good time to go, let me get some perspective on this and get an outside viewpoint, like somebody who's not in the relationship.
Yeah.
So you can look at it and say, okay, is this really a deal breaker, or is it just me getting upset for no reason, or getting upset for a reason that's much smaller, much bigger than the actual thing is that I'm dealing with? Because there's, again, we make choices in relationships sometimes, and I said some of my early ones did this, where we left when we didn't need to, or maybe we left when we missed out on what could have been, or we left when we had all these things that we already experienced. We want to keep doing this person. Now we've got to start over with a whole new person without any background, without any history. That's not going to be fun. So it's worth to be clear before you do leave. Is it the right choice to do the leaving? And yes, of course, sometimes it is.
So I'll tell you, the way I start out with couples is whoever calls me is usually the most upset person, but sometimes it's the person that really wants to save it and the other person's more upset. But I always know when I'm going to talk to both of them, who's the most upset. So I tell them the way we're going to start is I just say that person, knowing they're the most upset person. I need you to tell me all the reasons you fell in love with them. All the reasons you like them. And I'm going to write them all down. We're going to get to the rest, I promise. Just tell me all those. And then the other person gets to say all the same stuff that they like and they appreciate about them. Because if they did, and they've kind of forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you, Barry, it makes the rest of the conversation so much easier. I can't start out with them both yelling. I just can't. There's no way that's going to help anything. I lower the temperature in the room, and whether or not they're going to stay together, they remember why they were together and they see what they would lose, as you just pointed out. That's what made me think about this.
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to be worth to lose it? Or are we really going to dig in and do the work? It's been so fun to do it that way.
For me, it's such a profound recognition that it's like, it doesn't have to be over unless it really needs to be clear that it is over. Mm-hmm. We have this bad, unfortunate habit as human beings is to make stuff up. Yeah. And we make assumptions about things, and we basically take an idea, and one bad habit people have is they can later run with it without checking to see if it's even reasonable or not. So, as you said, absolutely, is really just know what's real, what's not real. One of our gifts is we reflect back to you what is real, what's not real. So you then know, oh, hang on a second, I made that up. That's not real. Or it's totally blown out of proportion. What I really experienced was this, and I made it into something 10 times bigger. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. I've done that once or twice personally. I really have.
Me too. Absolutely.
Yeah. It was funny because I did that with a couple once, and she said, I just know he thinks I'm so boring. When we got to the things that were hard. Yeah. And I said, really, why? Because I knew that was not the truth. And so she says all these things. And I said, so what do you think? He goes, oh my God. Have I not told you the most interesting person I've ever met? And he really meant it. Oh my God. It was she went, really? Really? She had made up stuff in her head. There were other things that led to it, of course. But I love those conversations when you talk about how we completely misunderstand or we make stuff up. We women are so excellent at making stuff up about what you're doing and not doing and thinking and not thinking, because we think we just know. You know better usually as men. You try, but you know how inaccurate you're going to be. So you generally don't do it as much as we do, but we think we really know. So we do it a lot.
Well, just to give you the other side of the conversation, we also are very good at being oblivious to things too. So as much as the women know so much stuff and think about so much stuff, and we don't get it, it's like because we're oblivious to what's going on. So we're steamrolling through stuff without realizing it. Sometimes, again, we need to both realize we have room to grow and meet in the middle. You know,
I love the oblivious because it's so true. And we think you're doing that on purpose, and you're so not. Part of your cute DNA-ness. It's so funny. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've sent that Mark Harmon, whatever his name is, the guy that does the two heads, but the compartment. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've sent it in like the last month. I probably sent it to 5 different people. It's so fun because, you're not misbehaving. You're just being your person. That's who you are.
Absolutely.
And it's part of your charm. For ourselves. Yeah. So if you've seen yourself in any of our conversations today, that you're currently doing it, as I mentioned in the beginning, or you've had this happen a couple of times where you felt blindsided and you're still pining for somebody, or you look back and go, oh, now I hear what I could have done differently, call us. We'd be happy to help you not do it that way again. Because as you've heard, we've done it that way and we've learned how to not do it that way. So we would be happy to teach you how to not do it that way. So how about that? Does that seem like a good plan? I think so.
I do too.
We're ready, willing, and able. So the way to get a hold of me is through my website, which is thank you, Silver, theperfectcatch.com. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. www.theperfectcatch.com is my website. And then you can click on what's holding you back from love, and you fill out 10 brief questions that give me a sense of where you are in what you want to talk about. And then you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me at your convenience. Mm-hmm. You can also send me a personal email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And on the homepage of my website, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find all my social media links so that you can see me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. I did them all, right?
I think so,
And
yeah.
you can also join my email list and get a replay of this podcast, as well as updates on what I'm doing in my life right now. And Barry, tell people how to reach you.
Thank you for sharing. For me, I also have a website and links. So if you go to my website, which is barryselby.com, on the homepage, you can click on the link that says take your next step. And in there is a link to my calendar. Fill a little questionnaire and you can get a schedule again at your convenience, same as Christine has that set up as well. And you get on my calendar, we can have a conversation and really see where you are and where you want to go and how you're navigating that journey. Including on my website at the bottom of the homepage, the link to my email list, we can jump in and join that as well, where I do send out an email replay of this show every week, as well as all your things I'm getting up to. Also on my website is the quiz that I have, which you go to barryselby.com/quiz. Thank you, Sue, for putting that up. That quiz is a relationship readiness assessment. So if you're single and some of the stuff is triggering you and you're not sure where you're going and how you want to get there, take the quiz and find out. The quiz will give you a perspective and a resolution of where you are now, where you want to go, and also an invitation to have a conversation with me as well. Because frankly, if you go to the quiz and you're looking at gaps in your success, it's a good time to talk to me. So definitely do that. In addition, on social media, you can find me on all the platforms. There's my name. Basically, Instagram is the one that's different, and also Threads is the same platform, which is the real Barry Selby. But otherwise, on all the platforms, you can find me as Barry Selby on YouTube.com/Barry Selby, Facebook.com/Barry Selby, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and all the other platforms too. And if you want to send me an email, you can send me an email at barry@barryselby.com. And either one of us can help you because, as we said in this conversation, we've been there, done that, we know better.
We have the teacher to prove it. And we're here every week on Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And we'd love for you to watch live. You could ask us questions. We'll answer them during the show. That would be so fun. And then also, if you go to our YouTube channels, you can like and share. Please share them with people that have complained to you about this problem that they've had in their relationships, because everybody's doing this, and most people don't know how to get past the rough places when they really do want to see if they can make a relationship work, or at least learn how to have it stop it from not working over and over.
Right. And also, of course, we do have our shows up on audio podcasts, so that way you can take them wherever you're going. If you're walking, hiking, biking, shopping, driving, wherever you're going, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., to listen to our podcast there. And frankly, you might discover one of the episodes is something your friends should listen to. So feel free to share them out with your friends, because frankly, it may not be about you, maybe about them or your ex.
You already knew all those things, but tell them the things that you know they don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll be back next week with another fun subject to update you on your dating and relationships.
That's what we're here for. We'll see you again next week.
Bye for now.
Bye.